In this video, we're going to do the mean absolute deviations, or MAD. Okay, so how do we calculate the mean absolute deviations? Or MAD is equal to the sum of the absolute value of x take away x bar over n. Well, x bar is the sample mean, and n is the total number of data points you have. Okay, so let's do an example. So let's say you have some data, 3, 4, 7, 5, and 1, and you're looking for the mean absolute deviations. How do we do this? Well, if you look at the formula, it seems like we're going to need the mean, okay? So that's very important. So let's calculate the mean. How do we do that? Well, that's the sum of all the data points divided by how many data points you have. So we're going to add all the data points and then divide by, in this case, 5. And the total will be 20 divided by 5, which is 4. And x bar is equal to 4. Okay, so we're going to calculate the mean absolute deviations through a systematic process, and we're going to use columns to do that. Okay, so the first column is going to be x, which is your data column, and then x take away x bar, which sometimes is called the deviations from the mean, and the absolute value of x take away x bar. Okay, so let's focus on the first column here, which will be our data set. So let's write our data, which will be vertical, 3, 4, 7, 5, 1. And so the next thing we want to do is we want to operate on this column, and we want to do some math here. Now the column says that you take x, which is 3, right? This is your x value. Then it says to subtract, and subtract 1, your mean. Where's your mean? Your mean is over here. So you're going to subtract 4. Okay, great. Now 3 take away 4 is going to be negative 1. Okay, so the next thing you want to do, now that you have that value, negative 1, in your mind, let's move over to the next column. And so in this case, we're going to take negative 1 and we're going to put the absolute value on it, okay? Because this is the operation that we're going to want to do, is take the absolute value of the x take away x bar. So the absolute value of negative 1 is right, is going to be 1, okay? All right, so let's do the next data value, which is 4. Take away 4, right? 4 is the data point, right? And of course, we have subtraction, and this 4, right, comes from the mean. So 4 take away 4 is 0. Absolute value of 0 is going to be 0. Let's try the next one. 7 take away 4 is going to be 3. Absolute value of 3 is going to be 3. Next data value is 5 take away 4. That's going to be 1. Absolute value of 1 is going to be 1. And then the last one is what? 1 take away 4, which is equal to negative 3. And then the absolute value of negative 3 is going to be 3. Okay, so let's double check a few things on our columns. So the first column is the sum of x, right? The sum of x is 20. That's correct, because when we first started, right, the sum of x was used for the mean, and that value was 20. Now, why do we want to do all this double checking? Well, to make sure we copy the numbers right and we're doing the problem correctly. Okay, what's the sum of this column? Well, it turns out that the sum of the deviations from the mean should be very close to 0. In this case, because we're using very nice numbers, right, discrete numbers, very easy to operate. When we start operating with fractions, decimals, and so forth, sometimes these values get a little bit hard to manage, and so the sum of this column doesn't quite be 0, sum to 0, but it should be pretty close to 0. In this case, it is going to be 0. Okay, and then let's sum the last column here. And what is that going to be? The sum of the absolute value of x, take away x bar, is going to be 8. Okay, now we use the formula MAD equals the sum of x take away x bar. So MAD is equal to the sum of absolute value of x minus x bar. What's that? That's right, 8 divided by 5. And that's your answer.